So, Eva is a head of business intelligence at the Exasol and the Tableau Zen master and evangelist. She's highly passionate about bringing data to more people and creating educational content. So recently she co-authored a book about data analysis and visualizations best practices. And she co-hosts and has weekly social data projects called #Makeover Monday. So if you go to the website treemydata.com, you'll find fascinating blogs from lockdown period for the last 2 months about solving problems that data scientists can do. So Eva, as I can see from your bio, is originally psychologist. So she did psychology and business degree at University of Wellington in New Zealand. And then that's when she first became fascinated with data and visualization, and worked as an IT consultant for Deloitte, then moving to Sydney, Australia as a senior solution designer for Commonwealth Bank. My family lives in Australia, so they deal a lot with Commonwealth Bank. And yeah, it's a big bank. And subsequently, she became a Tableau consultant and trainer for Trident. And I think, are you now in Germany or in UK?
I was in Germany. I'm in London now.
Oh, great. Okay, good to have you here. And apart from that, Eva is a keen triathlete. So I can see from the blog of Eva really merges these two interests she has in sports and data science. And it's fascinating to learn from you. Thank you very much. And the topic of your talk today is establishing a data culture by building an analytics community in our organization.
Thank you, Essel, for that introduction, and let me launch straight into it. Good afternoon, everybody. I think in recent weeks, the outbreak of coronavirus has really impacted many of us in how we do our work. And it's been quite distracting and disrupting, and it's pushed many companies to enforce not many companies, many countries, but also companies to enforce travel bans and to, have home office policies. And everyone's kind of, well, a lot of people are a bit isolated, but also we're sitting in our spare bedrooms. I mean, I'm in a shared office that I share with my partner. That's also our living room and our dining room and our home gym. And, there's a kitchen table there or a dining table, and then I have the desk, and we're just kind of making it work. And we're now only connected virtually by phone, by video, and by chat messages and emails. But also the seemingly disruptive isolation has forced many of us to open up to opportunities to connect in new and different ways. And I'm delighted that we still have the chance to be part of this event through a virtual platform. Oops. Okay, so let me just go back to it. Okay, so today you all became part of this community that formed around this event. And sure, it's just online, but it is a community nevertheless. And I trust that you've gained a lot of ideas and inspiration, as well as many new connections to people in data science over the course of today. But beyond today, what are some of the communities that you're a part of? And maybe that is something you want to comment on in the chat if you like. So maybe you're part of a professional association, or potentially a sports club. It could be a church, but also it could be something focused around your hobby that brings you together with like-minded people. Maybe some of you have children and you're part of a group for parents or families, and it could also be that you belong to a book club. Maybe you like hiking and exploring historical places around the country where you live, or maybe if you're like me, you're a big nerd and you love spending time with people who are passionate about data and analytics and data science. And whatever community you're part of, I'm pretty sure it enhances the quality of your life in some way or another. And communities really make us feel like we're part of something. They give us support, they give us ideas and inspiration. They surround us with people who share our interests and our aspirations. And that's why I want to share with you my ideas for building internal analytics communities in your organization so that you can establish, grow, and improve a data culture that becomes a competitive advantage and attracts more talent. My name is Eva Murray, and I'm now, as of a couple of days ago, a technology evangelist at XSL and also a Tableau Zen Master. And I'm responsible for helping our customers and our partners make the most of the analytics solutions they choose. I'm based in London, but originally from Germany. And I did an 11-year detour via New Zealand and Australia between 2004 and 2016. And in my spare time, I lead a project called or co-lead a project called Makeover Monday. And it's a global social data project where we have thousands of participants. And our mission is to improve the way that we visualize and analyze data one chart at a time. And over the past 4 years, thousands of visualizations have been created in this project on topics ranging from US politics, the UK economy, public transport in Sydney, malaria, and the flight path of turkey vultures in the Americas. So it's pretty diverse. In 2018, I co-authored a book on the lessons learned from this project where Andy, who started the project in the first place, and we share best practices for data analysis and visualization for analysts at any level. And I've got a few questions for you. And you're welcome to put them in the chat or maybe just kind of think about them for yourself while we're on this presentation. What I would love is for you to think about what's been your experience with communities. Do you consider yourself part of a data or data science or analytics community? And if so, which one is that for you? And how has that community influenced you? For me, moving to London was pretty much a game changer because I had previously traveled on average once a month from Nuremberg in Germany to London where I lived. So I lived in Nuremberg and I went to London for work meetings and for events and projects. And living in this city now has given me so many more opportunities to connect with like-minded people because there are more people, there are more meetups. And it's, there's obviously different businesses here and there's different communities around. And I'm still with the same company. I worked for XSL in Nuremberg and then I transferred over to London. And it's now given me this chance of being part of a professional community that focuses on data, on analytics, and also on the women in that sector. And it's been a really great way to also find friends after moving to London because I already knew quite a lot of people through my work, but they weren't my colleagues. So I was able to establish this kind of side group of friends that also had a shared passion and interest. If you want, feel free to share in the chat where you're located and maybe what some of the communities are that you're part of and that you can recommend and that might be helpful for other people as well. Okay, so in the next 30 or so minutes, I want to share with you why I think analytics communities are a great way to build a data culture in your organization and give you some suggestions and tips for establishing, growing, and developing your own internal community. So to start off with, we'll look at a couple of examples of analytics communities. The first one is one I'm personally heavily involved with, and that's the Tableau community. And I've been part of that for the last 6+ years. And over that time, the community has grown massively and has taken shape, welcoming new people pretty much every day. And what I really like is that this community is very open and there's a very strong focus on sharing knowledge through content, through meetups, user groups, events, and training. And people I have experienced are extremely giving with their time and their expertise, and they really seem to enjoy helping each other and teaching each other. And this community is spread over different platforms. So there's a lot of activity on the Tableau forums, and they focus on very technical questions and solutions. Somebody posts a problem, ideally with a dummy data set representing their challenge, or maybe even a workbook someone can download, and then others work to help them and answer that problem. And then there's also a whole different universe out there, and that's on Twitter, which is very much the platform for a lot of the community projects where people share their work with a broad audience and they find new connections. And then there's quite a few bit of activity around LinkedIn, which is all about the business side of things, promoting success stories, events and achievements, and sharing connections, sharing job opportunities, etc. And there are many analytics communities forming within organizations that use Tableau that I'm aware of. And while I can't really share all their specific details, there are 2 organizations who are connecting their internal with the public communities around them. And I want to tell you their stories. The first one is Operation Fistula. It's an organization, they're based here in London, and they have made it their mission to end obstetric fistula, which is a childbirth injury that has extremely severe effects on mothers. They want to end that once and for all. And Operation Fistula, together with our Makeover Monday community, the Tableau Foundation and Exosol, have launched an initiative called Visualize Gender Equality. And this initiative brings awareness to injustices experienced by girls and women, particularly in some of the poorer countries where access to education and healthcare is just not always open to women. And it brings together the expertise from the team at Operation Fistula in working with the nonprofit sector, engaging with other agencies, charities and government organizations, and the existing platform of Makeover Monday with its access and community of hundreds of regular participants that bring data analysis and visualization expertise. And through Tableau and the Tableau Foundation, the work we do around this Visualize Gender Equality initiative is really being amplified. We have a bigger reach on social media channels. And here are some examples of what was created during the first 2 rounds of events. So our goal is to grow and develop the social impact community around data analysis and visualization, so that data professionals who already know what they're doing when it comes to survey data, qualitative data, quantitative data, all of that, they can contribute their skills and talents and realize the difference they can make when they apply those skills and what they know to a topic they probably haven't really considered. And when we bridge we want to bridge the gap between nonprofits that typically have quite small teams when it comes to analytics, or maybe no resources, and the wider community of experts who can do a lot of good in a pretty short amount of time. And here's a great opportunity to have an impact with the skills. So what we do is every month, so once a month for 12 months, we've already done 2, we pick a topic in collaboration and provide a data set through this Makeover Monday community, where we ask people to create better visualizations of an existing topic. And the first one we did was around violence against women and girls, and the most recent one this month was around paid and unpaid work. And then we have, in a couple of weeks, another challenge coming out that again is with Operation Fistula. Now, the other example I want to share is about PATH. PATH is a global healthcare nonprofit based in Seattle, and they started the initiative Visualize No Malaria. They started that in 2015 with the goal to eradicate malaria from Zambia by 2021. And the project takes a very data-driven approach to identifying malaria hotspots, predicting mosquito breeding locations based on weather patterns, geography, and seasonality, and then distributing resources where they will be needed to prevent new malaria cases, while also treating existing patients most effectively. And to build their program, PATH relied heavily on volunteers from the data visualization and analytics community in order to collect and prepare data, analyze data, visualize the results, map locations of human settlements from satellite images, and to address really important analytical questions along the way. So PATH connected their own team of experts with healthcare workers on the ground in the field, and with data professionals who provided consulting and training, so that the local health workers and the government employees could transition to a data-driven culture as well, and they can use data, information, and insights in their decision-making. They can track their progress and their success, and they can improve their processes along the way. So what are some characteristics of analytics communities? I think it really boils down to these four. People who are engaged, they share a common interest. It could be data engineering, it could be data science, data analysis, data visualization, or any kind of more specific subtopics. They are typically also initiated and driven by passionate people, people who want to make a difference, who want to teach others, who want to solve this challenge or address, run this new project. And it's very common also to have an emphasis on knowledge exchange, learning and applying new skills, as well as networking. And then analytics communities are also a great place where innovation can take place. It's a safe place for trial and error and for establishing best practices that are also then shared with the wider organization. And I just want to take one quick second to look at the chat if there's anything. No, all good. I saw some comments come through. Okay, back on track. So how can you establish and grow such an analytics community? And it comes down to 4 pillars. So these are somewhat in order, but also standalone pillars that you can kind of mix and match. The first one is culture. So the question becomes, what kind of community do you want to establish internally? And when I talk about community, it could be any size. Some of you might be working in organizations where there's only a handful of people really working with data. Well, that can be your community. Because it's also not confined to the people that use data, but they're typically the ones that would start. And over time, you invite more people from the business, you might invite people from technology and other areas to really be part of it, and maybe even externals. So what kind of culture do you want to have in your analytics community? The example I'm giving here is really that focus on learning and development, because I've seen that work so well in the many virtual, but also the physical communities that I've seen in organizations that I've spoken to. People really like that focus on, okay, let's teach each other, let's learn from each other, let's share resources, and let's develop our professional skills and continue to do so. And then it's also important to be inclusive. And this is not strictly speaking that discussion that we often have around gender inclusivity or being inclusive to other ethnicities. That should all be a given. This is more, let's not just have data people in this community, but let's also be open to inviting people from business teams who have an interest or who are starting to use data more and more in their day-to-day work and who really need to learn. So let's make it quite open for anyone to participate. And then it's also about driving some sort of initiatives. I see that working really well through this project, Makeover Monday, and there is others like it. In the Tableau community, there's a project called Workout Wednesday, which focuses on very specific technical challenges that people have to complete. There is also Sports Viz Sunday, and people like alliterations. But having some sort of initiative that people can become a part of. And what I really like about Makeover Monday is it's a weekly rhythm. Every week we publish a visualization that we find online and a data set that goes with it. And we encourage people to create a better version of what we've shared so that they learn, and first of all, taking something that exists like a business dashboard or a report or an infographic and really analyzing it critically and identifying what doesn't work so well and what's actually good about it, what could we change, and then using their own ideas and their own skills to create something that tells the data in a more effective way. And doing this every week, we suggest to people, you don't need to spend a lot of time. If you give yourself an hour every week, over the course of a year, you will have invested 52 hours into your learning of data visualization. And the regular practice, I would rather people invest 52 hours over the course of a year than 52 hours for 1 week and then nothing for the rest of the year. So, I think it's a really good idea to have something regular. So what I'm suggesting is maybe there's a weekly or a fortnightly meetup that you could start. And these initiatives are supposed to be something small, something you can easily tackle. Having some people put their hand up and say, okay, I'm willing to have an open office for an hour every Tuesday, and people can stop by and they can ask me questions about my area of expertise. And this could be focused on data analysis, like it says here. It could be coding, could be visualization challenges, or it could be discussions on certain topics, whatever it is. But this is a great way with very little cost and very low barriers to entry to get started and to bring the people together that are working on similar topics. Because what we see in really large organizations is analysts are scattered all over the globe, all over the office, whatever the situation is. Sometimes they don't even know of each other's expertise and that they're working with data, but also they might not know that they're all working on the same problem. So this is a good way to kind of have that catalyst to get things started. And then the next phase would be, okay, what could we do out of that? And this is where events can come in, creating internal events, much like this Women in Data Science conference, because at the moment everything has to be virtual. Setting up something that brings people together and shares with a wider audience what is happening in the organization and some interesting topics. So a suggestion is to have regular webinars, or maybe there's a quarterly webinar with big updates. But you could also have a showcase, because quite often the work that we do in data analysis and data science is quite hard to understand for people who aren't part of what we do. So having a showcase where people really present their work, like a little expo area, is a good idea for getting that buy-in across the entire organization, helping people understand how data analysis and data science can really contribute to everyone's work. And then internal conferences. Of course, some of these events will work better if you have a larger audience and a larger community, but there are some organizations that set up internal 1 or 2 day conferences where they bring people together to learn. They have training sessions, they have presentations, they have showcases and things like that. And then I think training, and by this I mean a formal training program, is probably something that is at the same level as organizing internal events. You will want to be quite mature and have built an established community before you tackle that, because you need the buy-in, you need the resources, but you also need the people who will drive it forward. So creating a formalized training program can be something really helpful, especially in large organizations, because you can ensure that the best practices are taught internally, that standards and certain guidelines are shared, and that people don't, go out and all do it their own way. The important thing there is to then make the content available for others to use and to have contributors. So much like today, you don't want to have just one person be in charge of everything, but have a number of people, pulling together the content, selecting the speakers, getting everything to work smoothly together. And in the training program, what you might have is, sure, some in-person training, but also a lot of online content. And maybe you have, for specific areas of expertise, you have different contributors who record video training modules, or who write content like blog posts, white papers, instructional manuals, etc. And what's really important over time is to incentivize people to participate, because there's so much goodwill going around, but at some point people want to be incentivized, especially if this is in addition to their normal day-to-day work. So what I've experienced when I worked at Deloitte many moons ago was that we, as part of our annual performance, we had to deliver certain amounts of, internal articles. So this is kind of like internal blog posts where we would write maybe a recap of a project, how it went, what we learned, so that people can learn from one another. Or we would do a presentation at a monthly meeting of all the consultants, etc. And I think it doesn't have to be a really complex incentive scheme. Just let's make it part of everyone's performance plan, that their contributions are valued, they are wanted, but they're also then rewarded in a certain way. So where can you go from here? I think there is a few ways to go, and what I want to share is some things that you can do right now, some things that you can start, but they will take a little bit longer to really get going. And then also ideas on other communities that you can join. And I just want to have another quick look at the chat panel. Okay, yes, so, okay. Oh, let me go back to just get rid of the chat window. Here we go. So some things that you can start right now is, the easy stuff, the low-hanging fruit. Connect with some people in similar roles in your organization. This will be easier if you have some sort of networking tools like Slack or Convo or Microsoft Teams or something, or a place like Chatter and Yammer where you can actually find people, but also a directory, because if you work in an organization that has literally thousands of employees, chances are you're not quite sure where to start. You might not even know what all the different teams are and what they do. That was certainly the case when I worked at Commonwealth Bank. It's a massive organization of 50,000 people. And it's like, where do you even start? If there are people around that would have that kind of knowledge, by all means ask them. But maybe you can do a search for, even a LinkedIn search for the different data scientists or the different data analysts, data visualization experts in your organization, and find some people that way. If you are ready to take some responsibility of actually kicking off this community effort, I would suggest to come up with a place where you can keep all the resources you find helpful. They can be internal resources, like, okay, this is where you can find the software, this is where you can find this manual, here's best practices, maybe some style guides and branding guidelines, things like that. But also external resources. So what blogs do you read? What YouTube channels do you follow? And just categorizing them so that other people can use the same resources and can make their own contributions to it. And over time, hopefully you'll have a really big catalog of this is the useful stuff. And then sharing what you know. I'm a big fan of that. And interestingly, my mum once said, well, but if you share the stuff you know, don't you become obsolete? Because then other people can do your job. And I think the really important part to not forget is there is a space in this universe that only you have. There is your unique perspectives and your skills, your ideas, and just your whole human being that gives you that unique approach to something. There are plenty of people who can do technically what you can do, or who have the same level of business knowledge. But all the combination of what makes you you is what you bring to the table. And that's why I think no matter how much you share the stuff you know, you're not going to make yourself obsolete. I started my own blog, trymydata.com, in 2016, and I thought, what can I possibly add? And the weekly Makeover Monday blog posts where I assess the existing visualization and write about my own process, they are certainly not revolutionary. But every now and then I write about career development from my perspective, and those blog posts seem to resonate with people. And the way I approach that is I write something that I would like to read, which is typically quite detailed so that whoever reads it can go away and actually implement stuff. I'm not a fan of, here are 10 things you can do, but afterwards you think, how do I do them though? So I would say if you have skills that you're passionate about, or you have knowledge that you want to share, make that available to others, because it will really benefit them. And you never know who you reach. And if it's only one person who says, oh my God, thank you for your blog. You taught me how to do X, Y, Z, and now it saves me 2 hours a day. You don't know, this could happen, and you will make someone very happy. Of course, for that, it's great to have some sort of sharing platform. So I would recommend to see what tools are there. If it's kind of more your own, stories and the stuff and it's not proprietary information to your organization, then maybe start a blog or start a YouTube channel where you can share it. And hopefully over time that becomes an asset your organization recognizes and that you can have available internally. And then some things to start that will take a little bit of time to really get going, because it requires more people, structure, and good habits. Something like a weekly challenge or the office hours, I think is fairly easy to set up, especially because stuff is already out there for people to participate in. but it will take a little while to get going. So an example I want to share is St. Joseph's University in Philadelphia. I have kind of followed their journey over the last 3 or so years, and they had some students in their data analytics course who wanted to, so they were already participating in Makeover Monday in their free time, and they wanted to use it as a tool to help their fellow students learn more about data analysis and visualization. So the more senior students who were more experienced set up office hours where people could just drop in and they could work on these weekly challenges together. And I think it's a great idea, and it helped a lot of people to learn stuff. And from there, they then grew other initiatives. But what it gave them was this one weekly appointment of learning with themselves and for others that they could have available to anyone in the course, and that people would know Monday, 3 o'clock, we can show up and someone will give us help. And I think that regularity is really what helps. And that's why I would recommend that weekly, fortnightly, or monthly cadence. And then finding a group of champions, people like you who are really passionate and interested and driven to do something, to organize an event or showcase. And it doesn't have to be big, and it can be virtual. And maybe it's just half an hour over Zoom, but where you share with some of your colleagues the cool stuff that you've built, and where you can hopefully even bring it to a wider audience, people in the business, where you can show them, you know, this is how cool data science is, and this is the stuff we're working on to make your lives easier, to develop better products, to develop a better website that you know, has better suggestions for our customers of what products they should buy, etc. And then building that internal training program. And I think that one can be quite daunting, but at the same time, it can be really fun if you enjoy teaching. I personally learned how to teach when I became a Tableau consultant, because I also became a trainer, and I never realized that I really enjoy teaching. And I think it's a very unique skill set to develop, because yes, you might be a technical expert, but explaining how to do something to someone in a way they understand is not straightforward, and is something you really need to practice. But it can be really fun to think of, okay, how can I teach this to others, and how can I set up a formalized training program that has all these modules and all these different tools and these steps and these challenges, and there's gamification. Like, you can go all out. This can take up, basically it can take over your life if you wanted to. But it could also be something quite small, where you just say, okay, we're going to challenge people to do this by the end of the month. And, you know, we're going to make sure everyone completes it. And then we're going to do this thing as like the next step. And again, it depends what resources you have around you, how big your organization is, and all of that. But hopefully that could be something on your list. And then some other communities to join. So the data visualization examples I've mentioned, there's Makeover Monday, Workout Wednesday. Workout Wednesday, Project Health Viz, and Sports Viz Sunday are pretty much Tableau-centric projects. Makeover Monday is very Tableau heavy, because the Tableau community just happens to be very sharing and engaged, and not every other visualization and analysis tool has the option of you publishing things publicly. But we're in principle, we're tool agnostic. We don't really care what tool people use, and we have plenty of people using R and Python, and then there's Power BI and Google Data Studio and others. From a data science perspective, of course, Kaggle and GitHub, and there's plenty of others as well. And then Women in Tech / Women in Data. So we've got the Women in Data Science set up here today. Then there's also Data Plus Women, and there's We Are Tech Women, and many others. I just wanted to have a few listed there. So that brings me to the end of my talk, with a few minutes to spare for questions. And I saw a few things pop up. So maybe, Essel, you can let me know if there's questions from the audience.
Yes, so I failed to stop you in the middle to ask you a question from Giselle Mubalama. She was asking, what is the difference between data visualization and geographic information systems, GIS?
So data visualization can be geographical information, but it could be anything else. And so I use it for anything. So basically, GIS includes geographical data. Data visualization includes kind of everything. It could be survey data, which you can't necessarily put on a map unless you have some, you know, quantifiable measures against geographic locations. So data visualization for me encompasses anything that you do to represent visually data that's somehow quantifiable. It could be a scatter plot, it could be a bar chart, a line chart, a map, a heat map, bubbles, word cloud, anything that represents the data visually. It could also be a simple table like in Excel, like a spreadsheet, but that isn't very visual. So I typically, when it comes to, you know, finding insights or seeing patterns and trends, you really want something visual. And what I would recommend is have a look at makeovermonday.co.uk, and we have lots of examples in our gallery of what people create, and a weekly blog post where we pick the favorites for the week, things, visualizations that we feel really effectively communicate the data that was in the data set for that week.
Thanks. There's another question just popped up in the question and answer. So how do you support community transformation without alienating older members?
Alienating what? Who? Older members?
Older members, maybe the age problem.
Could be age, could be older as in experienced, you know, or, you know, have been longer in the organization. It's a really interesting point, because I know a lot of the people that are in the communities that I participate in, they are certainly, I would say, age range like 20 to 35, maybe to 40, but there are not that many who are older than, well, there are, but not that many, at least not the ones you see. But I think that also is a behavioral difference in generations, where the ones I see because they are engaged on the channels where I am, Twitter, LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Whereas the ones that are older are probably still participating, but in a different way. And what I find is that the people I know who, you know, participate in those communities and who are more experienced and maybe older in age as well, they might either be very experienced and have worked with data all along, or they have come from a very business focused role and recently moved into data. But what I love and what I always try and encourage them to do is to bring their unique perspective, because they have a whole lot of experience from a very different angle. And what I typically find is that the people who are older and more experienced with business knowledge do much more in-depth analysis. They are much more careful in how they phrase things and communicate information, rather than just quickly putting something out for attention. I know that's a very broad generalization, but that's something that I've noticed.
Yeah. The correction was from Hillary, who was asking this question, is that she meant people who were in organization in first place, and then new generation of employees coming. And
oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, so hopefully the ones who've already been there for a while would be some of those champions that you engage to build the community. And I think that's important, because you don't want the community to be just of people who have literally just joined. And I think you want that experience, you want the business acumen, and just, you know, how are things done, but also bring them together. And I think that's where this teaching and knowledge sharing can really work, because it asks a little bit of everyone, and it asks people to listen, but also to share. And that could hopefully be an approach that works in accessing the expertise of the older people, or the, you know, more long-term employees, while also giving the new ones a chance to learn and to bring fresh ideas.
Yes. So there's another question from Lee. She was saying, have you studied anything that might help us with us now, everyone working from home? Have you? Yes.
So Makeover Monday has always been virtual. What we have done is, in the past, we would try to do through user groups or conferences or other events, we would try to do in-person events, so that it literally is a room full of nerds sitting at a table, or sitting at many tables, and doing these data visualization challenges within 60 minutes. So At the Tableau conference last year, we literally had 1,700 people split across 2 big rooms. So one room was 1,500, the other one, one room was 1,200, the other one was 500. And tables of 10, and here's your data set, here's your visualization, create something better, you have got 60 minutes. And then people collaborate in person. Of course, now that's a bit different, but Makeover Monday has always been virtual. So I guess for me, that's always worked quite easily, where we use data.world as a platform for sharing the data sets because they're all public data sets. We use Twitter as a channel for communicating. We use BrightTalk to host a weekly webinar where we give people feedback, and we share. So when I say we, Charlie Hutchison and I run the project together. And in this webinar feedback webinar, we give our opinions on, how did they use color? How did they use text? How was their analysis? What charts did they use? Does it work? Does it not work? And we give them suggestions on how to improve, because we want people to really learn something every week. And I think using what you could do is look at all those different community projects that are out there and see, is there something that could work for your organization, and literally just replicate it. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. And I think there's a lot of good ideas out there. Of course, there's always going to be some sort of need for technology, but if you start with something simple, test it out. If it doesn't work, tweak it or try something different. But I think there's a lot of opportunity for sharing things. Of course, it also means a lot of communication with people, because you can't just get everyone into a room and very quickly talk about it. But if you can get a couple of people to help you and then spread it to more people, and what I always like to do also is write a little planning document of how do things work and what do we want to achieve? What are the different steps? What does the process look like? Because then you can more easily communicate and share that information with everyone who you want to participate.
So you usually collaborate through Kaggle and GitHub, right?
I don't, no. So we use data.world for the Makeover Monday community, and Twitter, because Makeover Monday isn't really a data science project. It's really about data visualization. And I would say it suits anyone from new beginners to experienced people, because you can make of it whatever you want. You can push it as far as you want, and people can get very advanced with the visualizations they create. But of course, GitHub and Kaggle provide great platforms for engaging people, for sharing things, etc.
Yes. Yes. So Giselle was continuing, and she wanted to ask if she wants to participate in this collaborative volunteer project. Does she have to have sort of base visualization analytical skills, and what's the best specific training would you suggest that?
I would say that participating is great training. If you go to makeovermonday.co.uk, you see on the main page, if you just scroll down, there's all the steps, this is kind of how you participate. And what I also say to people, if they're a bit unsure, they could just watch. So maybe watch a week of what happens on Twitter. What do people post? What do they discuss? And join the weekly webinar and see the feedback we give. Because we typically repeat ourselves every week on many things, like, what colors work well together, in terms of layout, leaving white space, using the right chart for the right data, etc. So I think just by observing, you can learn a lot. And what we find is we typically get about 50 submissions so we typically get between 100 and 200 submissions every week of visualizations. And about 50 of those request feedback on the webinar, because it's only an opt-in process. We don't give everyone feedback. It's only the people who specifically ask for it. And we only have about time for 20. We only have an hour, because this is all in our spare time and free of charge. So there's only so much we can provide. But we typically have about 70 to 100 people actually watching the webinar, which means there are a lot more people than submitted. And some people just learn by watching others. So if you just want to kind of get a taste for it, I would recommend join our webinar next week. I think, so I've scheduled it. It's all on the website. You find it under webinars, and then see what you think. And hopefully we can have you participate as well.
Yes, I think there's, are there any more questions? I think most of the questions come from community organizers, because it suddenly, it's shifted online. So women in data science usually encourage to have a datathon after this conference.
Mm-hmm.
We got this problem that we can't now organize a hackathon, and want to still engage our community and sort of come up with the problems that we can solve together. So we started Women's in Datathon group, and we encourage everyone to connect through LinkedIn. And I could see on your website on Try My Data that you're already solving COVID-related problems. What would be the best way to sort of put the problems for hackathon? How do you usually come up with the project for hacking?
Oh, so typically we've done, I mean, Makeover Monday Live is kind of like a hackathon when we meet in person. And I mean, we kind of just pick whatever topic we like, because we're just two people doing this on our own. We don't have any, you know, specific targets that we need to reach, but we often collaborate with nonprofits, and that is what this Visualize Gender Equality Initiative, which you can find on Twitter under #VIS5. That's what that is all about. And that's where Operation Fistula provides us with the topic and the data set that we use. So I would say, I mean, when it comes to COVID data, I'd be very, very careful. I have not touched it, and I will not, because I'm not an epidemiologist. I don't really want to get myself into hot water because I'm visualizing something and it's, you know, it's incorrect. So I'm leaving that to the experts. But having said that, there are projects out there organized by some governments, but also by other groups who do hackathons around COVID data, and who need especially data scientists to help them solve some of those challenges. And I would strongly encourage you that if you have time and willingness to share, you know, to spend some of your time to use your skills and tackle these challenges, by all means do, because they provide guidelines, they provide data sets, approaches, etc. It's just that the skills I have and the knowledge I have on, you know, pandemics and viruses don't really match up with what I would be comfortable to put out there. But I think if it's a very credible hackathon, like the organization behind it, or, you know, if you guys want to pick something for this Women in Data Science, I think finding nonprofits to collaborate with and seeing if they want to do something, I can definitely connect you with some of them that we've worked with. I know they would be very keen.
That would be great. I think we should ask you, get your expertise in organizing this.
Absolutely.
Yes, this was the last talk today, and I was happy that this was the topic of the talk, because it's a good way to conclude this initiative, Women in Data Science London. And I wonder if Lee and Brian and Sarah want to add anything.
Hello, that was great. Eva, thank you so much. Oh, my microphone is on the floor rolling around. Sorry. That was really good. And Brian, if you have anything before I sort of wind things up, or wind things down rather.
Oh, take it away.
Okay. Eva, that was really terrific. And I especially loved the some of your insights. You've clearly thought and studied this really well, and about us being scattered, but it not being an obstacle right now to us coming together to use our power together as data scientists, which is really lovely. And that we are much more powerful and can keep data science going in the right direction if we're working together in a community. So that's really a terrific note to end on, as Assel said. Also, the notion of being passionate, and I had written down before you said it, let your geek flag fly. And it sounds like that's an okay thing to do, and looks like it's been a successful strategy in your findings. So that was encouraging for those of us that like to let our geek flags fly.
Thank you.
So thanks to all of the speakers today. And it was really tough. You know, as I was listening to Eva, I was thinking during trying to figure out what order to put the speakers in today was a bit of a challenge, because it all comes together. the architecture comes at the same time as the community around architecture. The data analysis comes, but only when it's supported by the other. It all really circles in and out of each other through and through each project and each successful sort of setup, and moving a business in the right direction at the same time as reaching a goal of a project or whatever. So it was really, I hope that everybody can go away and think about the presentations in different chronological orders to sort of put them all together in creative ways, because it's impossible to know where to start and where to end. But I do want to say thanks to Eva, thanks to Anat, thanks to Mandy, to Duo, to Seppi, to Viviane. You've all done a lovely job for us here today, and I think everyone has enjoyed it. There have been lots of comments about great talks. And to Aso and Brian and Sarah, who's been very quiet there, Sarah.
I'm here.
She's there. Well done. We did it. And we welcome everyone who's attended to join us in LinkedIn. And we want to have a much bigger and stronger WiDS meetup next year and sort of keep things going, keep getting the women in data science that are leading and doing such terrific jobs out here in front of everybody, so that we don't wait for creepy people to lead data science down their creepy ways. So anyway, thank you all so much. And that's really it, I think.
Almost. Just one more thing. You're a very modest person, and you're not taking any accolades for actually leading this group of ambassadors. So thank you for you as well, because this wouldn't have happened without you.
Thanks very much. My pleasure.